great to be here, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the role of spatial planning and urban design in placemaking. I'm working for a company which is a bit specialized. I'm a trained architect, but our focus is really on understanding the impact of the built environment on human behavior patterns. So we are delighted to be involved with this project where we're looking across different sectors how we can work together to achieve a more healthy environment for people to live in. So why is this really important? In many places this is not happening. So in this country and other countries we're creating places where people feel trapped. So they have their homes, but they don't have the infrastructure and environment to lead healthy lives. So this is quite a unique project, and I hope we will be learning from it and be able to apply it in other places. Why is this so important for health? Because we know this is a paper in the British Medical Journal which is talking about the association between a car-dependent lifestyle, commuting by private vehicle, and body mass index and obesity. So we know the impact of the urban form, impacts on our behavior in terms of transport choices and our lifestyle, and that has a direct impact on health. So as a spatial planner, what do we have to do with this? So the parameters we are influencing as designers in spatial planning have to do with street and transport networks, which come in at very early stages. They can't easily be changed later on, and they have a massive impact on this. The distribution of land uses in relation to where people live, where they work, population, densities, where are the open spaces and how accessible they are. So the models I'm going to show you throughout this presentation, they're all related to studying patterns of connectivity and how they impact on what will be the patterns, what will be the hierarchies of movement throughout a settlement, and how will that impact on things like vitality, viability of commercial uses, location of amenities, and so on. So in this day and age, as planners, we are confronted with a lot of data. Everyone has a lot of data, but many communities are overwhelmed with the data, and they don't necessarily know what exactly to do with it or what questions to ask. So what we try to do is work with our partners to understand what are the most important things to their communities and their quality of life. So typical questions we would look at. How many jobs can I get to within half an hour? So is this a place where I have a choice of employment opportunities in the future? Can I walk to a decent school or other social amenities like a doctor's surgery? Am I close to shops, cafes, parks, so I can walk to these places, have a healthy lifestyle for my day-to-day activities and meeting with the community? And then how do I look at all these questions and design a place where the outcome is best for everyone overall? And so we think we can make better urban design and policy decisions by looking at these different systems of connectivity and land use and population distribution, which impact these important daily patterns of use. And all the different data inputs we are using are listed on the other side. And as I said, there's more and more data available. Let's bring it to really good use. This is showing the integrated urban model, as we call it, where we look at the spatial connectivity as well as other important parameters which relate to things like adult obesity estimates, percentages, for example, in this case. So we've been able to show in Exeter that these relationships are also true in this community. So we can use this understanding then to create a place which takes this into account. So the other thing is for integrated urban modeling that it's really important in order to create successful communities. We've already heard about this. It's important to work across different sectors. So we have experience with taking different data silos and combining them in a digital platform, so to say, so we can use this understanding. This is a model where we look at the number of different land uses within 5 minutes walking distance, for example. It shows you that there are areas where you can have a very diverse lifestyle on foot, and other areas where that's more difficult. Then access to jobs, car dependency is a hugely important factor also in relation to climate change, not just health. And then we have a good understanding. We've studied many existing places, new towns on the right, as well as historic centers of cities, where we can see what are the differences. So in historic centers, you have a certain density of things and an overlap of people and places, whereas the modernist planning approach, which has been used in the 20th century a lot, basically the idea is to separate functions from each other and connect them by vehicle system, and also separate vehicles and pedestrian routes with a good intention for safety aspects. But we know now that it can also lead to a lot of problems, because you kind of over dilute your network, create too many routes for too few people, and that can also create fear of crime, or other aspects of the character of the environment which are not encouraging the healthy behavior. So with this knowledge and those tools, we basically looked at the master plan in Cranbrook, tried to understand which of the routes at a local pedestrian scale would have the potential to attract a lot of people, i.e. they would be very convenient for most people most of the time moving through the settlement. And using that understanding to try to decide where town center functions should be, and which streets should be lined with shops and social amenities, so they would be accessible for a lot of people most of the time. And this is a model which we call multi-scale spatial accessibility, where in the red color you see all the routes which are both highly accessible for very short journeys as well as wider journeys. And we know from studying existing places that those places have a really good potential to be places for retail, to be viable, because you would have enough passing trade coming through them, and they would also be attractive for people walking to places. So we should design them in a way that they're both attractive for pedestrians, cyclists, as well as cars, to support the local economy. And then we know that there are other places which are less locally connected in the green color, which have a very high importance for global journeys, but they don't require, they're not as useful for pedestrians, so they can be designed in a different way. And this is just a quick switch between a sort of railway crossing, where you can see changes to the network like this can have a massive impact on this movement potential in different places of the town, and we should take this into consideration when we make decisions like this, when we then also adapt the land use planning. This is just a kind of guideline we developed in terms of the primary, secondary, tertiary, and connections, how they should then relate to different land uses along them and different build out in terms of urban design character. And we use these principles to study the master plan and advise on the landscape design, the land use distribution, and the overall connectivity. So we also then made suggestions for improvement, certain parts of the master plan in the connectivity pattern. On a more detailed level, we also looked at the development parcels and how they should be different. Often designers look at urban blocks and they treat all four frontages of the block the same, without taking into account the hierarchy of the movement network and the sort of linear structures they relate to. So we've also been advising to how the parcel should be built out along the main roads, how they should be built out along the tertiary and secondary routes, and what that means for the assignment of road surfaces and build out of the urban design, typologies, flexibility of buildings, and so on. So, for example, I talked about those regional routes which are more important for longer journeys, and that not necessarily, while you have segregated cycle routes, they can still be adjacent, so they feel safer than a completely separate network for cyclists and pedestrians. Also looking at avoiding cul-de-sac development and interlink them into more sort of networked system of routes, which creates shorter walking distance. You don't have to turn back on yourself so much, and that creates a higher walkability score for an area. The other thing we did with our integrated urban model, we tested different models for the care hub provision. So there's a centralized model, and we could use our model in terms of population, location, and these services to look at how many of these health services would be within 10-minute walking distance in the centralized hub, or if you have a more distributed model, how this number of households would then increase, having the health services within 10 minutes walking distance, making it more likely that people would walk or cycle to these locations. And then looking at actual percentage of population in each model having this accessibility. Same can be done for schools, because we know the school run is one big issue in terms of car dependency as well. And as a summary, what we try to promote is this outcome-based approach where people and their needs are at the heart of the planning and design process, using data for transparency, accountability, and confidence in our decision-making of very expensive long-term decisions relating to infrastructure and urban design, and always taking this holistic approach to issues where we collaborate across the different domain silos of the different sectors involved in the creation of new places, as well as the different data silos. Thank you very much.